Hi, welcome to NDE TV. Today's guest is Barbara Ireland, and she is going to tell us all about herself and about her experiences. Now, you had an NDE as well, correct?
That's right.
Okay. So just wherever you want to start is fine with me.
Okay. Well, let's start with the NDE.
Okay.
So as you and I were discussing a moment ago, I was in a band with the guitar player for Pearl Jam, Stone Gossard, and I was co-singer with him in this band. And we were on tour and in Brooklyn on stage when, this is Stone Gossard. He has a lot of fans, right? So the entire place is loving him. I don't know what they thought about me, but they were
What was your role?
So I was a singer with him.
Okay.
Yeah. So everything's going great. And then I noticed this one man in the very front, right in front of me, who was disliking the whole band, the whole thing. He probably thought it was going to be Pearl Jam, but we were not Pearl Jam.
We focus on that one negative, don't we?
We do indeed. And that was how this whole thing began. Because, out of hundreds of people, for some reason, my consciousness zoomed into this man and I couldn't get him out of my thoughts while I was performing. And so I thought, what's wrong with that guy? And then what's wrong with the band? And then quickly, what's wrong with me? I'm such a bad singer. Why did Stone bring me on tour? What am I doing here? And this high note's coming. I'm not going to hit it. And it was just this cascade of negative thoughts, 99% of which were about myself. And while I had to do the whole show that way, I had this stream of negative thoughts going while this other part of my consciousness was remembering lyrics and singing and acting like everything was normal. And then Peggy, there was a third part of my consciousness who was standing behind me, observing me doing all this bizarre, gymnastics with my mind and saying, wow, look at all that going on. And so I was just in this altered state. So that night I went to
see yourself from behind, or you felt someone from behind?
It was me. It was like a version of it was my higher power probably observing me doing this.
Because my NDE was like that. That's so weird. I was more than one place, but go ahead.
Yes, exactly.
I get that.
Yeah. So I'm glad you do. So that night I was laying in bed and I thought, are these negative thoughts going on in my head all the time? Because I'm not aware of them. And I thought, if that's the case, we need to get rid of these things. And therapy hadn't done it. And so I thought, I need to figure out something else. So I signed up. I had this great idea. I'd sign up for this camp where you go and you push boundaries and you face your fears and you develop courage and you get over hurdles. So I signed up for that when I got home. And months later, it was happening. And so this was in a very remote area of Vancouver. And I luckily suckered my best friend into going with me. And it was a really good thing because this is where my near-death experience happened. So all week long, we're sleeping in tents, but sleep deprivation. They gave us about 3 hours a night. And all during the day was physical, extreme, difficult, scary things. And I signed a form, so I can't tell you what, but we're talking heights and fire and creepy people doing things to freak you out. And then there's tons of lecturing late into the night. So you're mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted.
And this helps your self-esteem.
Well, the weird thing was I was doing really well. I was thinking, wow, I'm really courageous. I just did that crazy thing today. And
I'd be thinking, why am I so stupid? I'm here.
Well, that's true. Yeah. So the last day, was a endurance experience. So my body was very tired by now. And I had been drinking tons of water. It was hot out and didn't want to be dehydrated. I had been sweating all week long. So about halfway through this event, I was fine up to then. And then my legs started getting really shaky. I started seeing flashes in the air. Sounds were sounding really, really like that, just reverberating. I couldn't understand my team partner. And I kept drinking water, thinking I must be dehydrated. Well, when I got back, which was a miracle I even made it back, but I did the whole event. And at the end, it was like a horror movie. There were so many, all my senses were completely confused. And
Now you were back home? Is that what you mean? Or back to
No,
your
I mean,
room?
just at the end of this event. So I'm still there and I made it
Oh,
through this
okay.
endurance thing.
You're still there. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm coming through the finishing line of this, and people are clapping on either side of the finish line, and they look like out of a horror movie. They're strobing and it was just creepy. And so I sat down and I asked for someone to get a medic. Well, the poor fellow that came was seriously not a medic. I think maybe he had one of those CPR courses. You know, like,
Yeah, if you signed a thing, nobody's responsible. Why have real
exactly. And which blows my mind if you knew the things we were doing. I mean, people could have been paralyzed, killed, you know, who knows, trauma, who knows what would have, I don't know, wasn't well run in that sense. So he gave me electrolytes, which on the physical plane, I think is what saved my physical body. But it got way beyond that as far as what actually happened. Because what was happening as far as physically was heat stroke. So I was actually having stroke symptoms. But more importantly for my particular body is hyponatremia, which is when the sodium gets washed out of your blood.
And I have that too.
Sweating. Okay, you know that.
Yeah.
So you know it crashes.
I didn't know the name for it.
Yeah.
They said low in potassium, but I have just learned that if I just have a little bit of salt, I'm good, like that.
Yep, exactly.
Is that where you are?
Yes, I need to have salt all the time.
What's that called? I need to look into that.
Yeah, hyponatremia.
Okay.
And marathon runners sometimes keel over from it because they're sweating and drinking so much water. So so my blood pressure was crashing. I was having stroke symptoms. So the so-called medic and my best friend took me back to my tent. And there, it was too hot. So I lay under a tree, this beautiful, beautiful tree. And as I lay there, I always at this point, there's these moments of the near-death experience, I start tearing up because it was so intense and I'm so grateful for everything that happened. So just letting you know. So one at a time, each of my limbs just stopped. They went offline, so to speak. And I could sense them dying in a way, to the point where I was screaming in terror to my friend. My left leg's gone, my right leg, my arm.
It just sounds like he was like being unplugged, like losing your battery. Like
that is a perfect description, Peggy. Perfect. It felt exactly like that. In fact, I felt the energy coming out of my head, which I later decided must have been life energy, because when I chose to come back, I felt it come back. But it was drifting out and it was this really odd sensation. And I was basically a torso and a head laying there under a tree, helpless. And I was crying and all this. And then out of the blue, this movie started playing of something in my life from a few weeks earlier, a band practice I was in a band with my brother and some other people, and he and I had an argument at this rehearsal. and it played this movie. And I always try to describe the movie as it was something I was watching in this moment, but I was also experiencing it at the same time. So I don't know how to
I
describe
know
that.
what you mean.
Okay.
My drowning, like this scene opened up. That's why I call it, because I don't know how else to call it. And it was just this memory of, I'm looking at this fishbowl with the house, but it was happening. It was a
Yes.
memory, but it was happening. I know what you mean.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, yes. And so you have, as you know, the same, you can tap into the same emotions, the same thoughts, everything's the same, but you're also kind of watching it.
Yeah.
So that was going on. And at some point, this neutral male-ish voice, no, male voice said, the movie stopped, and this freeze frame of this moment, and it said, "What were you thinking at that moment?" And I thought about it, and I said what I was thinking. And as soon as I said that, the movie went away, and a new movie began from
Did
like a
it
month.
teach you something? Do you feel that was there to teach you something?
I didn't know what was going on yet. I just answered the question.
Okay.
And so then the new image of something that happened another day stopped at this exact moment when I raised my eyebrow. And I could see my eyebrow raised. And it said, "What were you thinking when you raised your eyebrow?" And I thought about it, and I said, and that went off. Another one came up. And this went on for hours, Peggy.
Wow.
They were all adult things, not childhood for some reason. And I'm going to admit something that cracks me up now. There were 2 instances where it said, "What were you thinking right then?" And I lied because it was so like not generous and embarrassing and maybe judgmental, or, I said, "Well, I was thinking blah, blah, blah." And then the movie didn't go away. It stayed there, and it said, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Okay, actually I was thinking blah, blah, blah," and it went away. So obviously I couldn't lie to this being.
That was a nice way for them to approach you. Are you sure? Like, you bold-faced liar, but are you sure?
Exactly. It was funny. So this went on for several hours.
Wow.
I was so engaged with it that I forgot about being afraid. I was so curious about what was going on. I wasn't questioning it. I was just going along with it. And then at one point, the movie stopped, and the voice said, "You now have a choice, Barbara, to stay or go." So I'm tearing up because, as you know, I never passed 100% out of my body. But all during this time, I was moving closer and closer and closer towards death. And at the moment I was asked this, I had one foot in this world and one foot in that world. And I'm tearing up because the love on that side was so magnificent and overpowering and welcoming that obviously I can feel it right now. It was like pure love consciousness. And it had its arms open saying, "You are welcome here if you want to come." But I am so grateful I was given a choice. And I really had to think about it because what I felt was so great over there. And I knew coming back to my body, there are so many things I love about life. But I was going through a divorce. I was on antidepressants. Even though I was having a really cool time singing with Stone, I didn't know my purpose. I was, there was a whole bunch of things messed up. I was having problems with my brother that I needed to resolve. And I thought, God, it would be really great to just leave all that and go into that incredible space of love. So I had a conversation with this voice, and we discussed it, and I made the decision to come back. And the moment I said I would like to come back, well, first the voice said, "You need to talk to these 4 people and within the first week of when you're back, and you need to tell them these things." And I agreed to that, and I did that. It was remarkable and intense. But as soon as we went through all that, immediately the energy went zooming back through my head into me. All of my limbs came back online. And within, I would say, 4 or 5 minutes, I felt completely normal, besides being exhausted and perplexed about everything that had just happened. And I opened my eyes to see the sun had gone down. And oh my gosh, Peggy, to see this earthly, gorgeous plane again. Here we go.
Mhm.
It's like through the eyes of a baby being born, but with an adult consciousness of seeing, and you know what you're seeing, but it's all brand new, and it's so miraculous, and it's so alive, and it's, the colors were over the top.
I wonder if part of you was still 1 foot over there, that you was able to experience that feeling.
Possibly, I don't know. All I know is this feeling of intense aliveness and joy lasted for a whole month.
Wow.
And so
You know, that's common though with near-death experiencers. I've heard some of them say they still felt like they had 1 foot over there
did
when
they?
come back for quite a while.
Yes.
I think Mary
Yeah.
Neal, Jeffrey Olson, I believe they both said it.
Ah, well, it's a beautiful space if you can like integrate it. You know, I was lucky that I had a flexible schedule and I could integrate. I could take some time off, and I spent hours smelling flowers in the neighborhood or eating food so slowly, and being a lot of the time by myself, and just spacing out at the clouds and listening to music through my whole body. I mean, it was extraordinary.
Mhm.
And then slowly that started fading. I didn't smell every flower. I heard music through my ears. I started eating while I was doing something else, like reading or something, working. And worst of all, Peggy, is I started hearing negative thoughts again.
Oh no.
I started hearing, mainly worry was my thing. Worry again. And now some self-doubt coming in. And now some judgment for myself or other people. And self-criticism. And I was like, what? And I was mad. Thought, I went through a near-death experience and that crazy ass camp and therapy before all that.
So you knew what it was called?
No,
Okay.
that was later. No, I labeled it later. I went through
Okay.
that weird experience, is what I called it for a long time, till I started reading and understanding. But I'm doing my own contemplation. But so because I got angry, I sat down and I thought, okay, what was the common denominator of all those questions I was asked for those hours? In what was later I came to understand was a life review of sorts. And I realized every single question was about my thoughts. It's some about my emotions, but they were always connected to a thought. And it dawned on me, if I were to alter the way I think, I bet you my life would change. Because every one of those instances was made worse or brought on by a thought. Because the things that are happening to us every moment of every day are just happening. But it's our interpretation, our reaction, our own triggers that are causing them to be good or bad. And so I didn't know any of that back then. I was just living like a normal human being, being triggered, being reacted, pulling from all the story of my life to decide if this was good or bad, or if I was better or worse than somebody, comparing, jealousy, self-doubt, all this stuff. The pure identity of who I am was based on my thinking. And that's the normal state of human beings. problem is the thinking that we're deciding are us or that is the world is incorrect. It's the persona, it's the ego, which I have no problem with the ego, but it's just extraordinarily out of balance with what actually is and what is actually underneath all of that. I had no idea at that point. And in fact, as I wrote you recently, so much more awakening about this has happened in the last few months. So my near-death experience happened in 2010. And that began this whole journey of listening to my thoughts, altering the way I think, researching how humans think, the neuroscience behind it, the what causes depression, what causes anxiety, the chemical, biological addictions that we get to unwanted emotions. We think, oh, I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be jealous. I don't want to have self-doubt. But our brain literally starts getting addicted to these things because we're used to them.
And I don't know this word, this hydro thing, the salt, because I mean, I'm saying I have that. I mean, I have been diagnosed, but you know, I didn't know there's a name for it because I just know I have salt. And my sister's disabled. They say she doesn't get enough salt to her brain, and she's mentally disabled her whole life. And so I'm wondering if some of us that have this salt issue might have more trouble with those negative thoughts because our body chemistry is doing things. Just a thought.
That's very possible. And I've also read in my research that and I don't know anything about your childhood. I know you said some of it in your drowning experience, but they said that repetitive thoughts, specifically negative repetitive thoughts, which I'll give you a crazy statistic in a moment, but that is more pronounced in people that grew up with alcoholism in the family. And I don't really understand that.
The PTSD, childhood abuse, and I think with vets too, it alters our brain chemistry.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. So in my research, I discovered that we think 60,000, the average person thinks about 60,000 thoughts a day. What percentage would you guess of those thoughts are repetitive, whether good or bad? Do you have an idea?
It's a lot though.
Yeah.
We dwell.
Yes, we dwell, ruminate. They believe 90% of our thoughts are repetitive. And then do you have an idea of what percentage might be negative thoughts for just the average person?
Oh, probably half.
70%.
Really?
So if we're thinking 60,000 thoughts a day, 90% of which are repetitive and 70% of which are negative, then it's no wonder people are on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medicines and struggling so hard.
Yeah. And for me, I realized the hard way, I can't have caffeine, not even a little bit. Now I thought, okay, I can do decaf. And I had to cut off decaf. I found out there's 6% caffeine in decaf.
Yes.
You know, my husband I could only have like the non-caffeine pop, and he got me some pop the other day, and I started feeling edgy and grouchy again. And he looked, it was Sun-Kissed. It's got, I think, 14% caffeine. I'm like, oh no, I can't do it. Like the passwords start coming, and I'm like, do I have caffeine? I got to watch the sugar too. And then, you know, I'm pretty sure I have this salt thing. I'm going to get that checked because I didn't know there's a name for it.
Yes.
And my potassium keeps bottoming out. And I was put on the squad one time. I was at work and my potassium just went out. It kind of reminded me of what you were saying, but mine was not hearing everybody else's voice doing that. When I opened my mouth, whoa, you know, it was coming out like that.
Oh,
my words weren't coming out, you know, because confused. I didn't know where I was. And so they called the squad. And it was like, your potassium was like dangerously low. I've been eating everything. I don't know why I bottomed, but I just, something I have to watch. You know, to eat
Our
bananas.
bodies are so beautiful and so sensitive and so different
Mhm.
in what it needs, what each of them needs. So I'm glad you're paying attention and getting the
Yeah,
things.
but you have to get a certain age where you figure this stuff out. You're
Yeah,
just
I
going through this
know,
for
I know.
decades. Like, you know, especially the salt thing. Like nobody hears of that.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, they always say drink more water. Well, some of us need to be careful and make sure
Yeah.
we balance that with salt, or we'll wash all the salt out.
Now, did you know you had that condition at the time, or was that done?
No, that's when I got back.
Okay.
Yeah, and I got everything tested out,
What
found
do
out
they
what
have you do for it?
blood tests.
But I mean, to take care of it now, like,
Oh, making sure, like my doctor said, eat potato chips before you go on hikes, which cracked me
okay,
up.
is that what it is?
But just basically eating more salt. And
My blood
even my
tests, yeah, my blood
naturopath,
tests have said I'm low on salt. So my
yeah,
husband has
I
to
think
watch
we're
his salt
lucky.
and I
We're like,
don't. That's all they said. Huh?
so anyway, the research led me to,
Sorry, I got off topic.
that's okay, that's all right. We'll go wherever the topic goes, okay? So the research led me to develop, after 3 years of intense research and working on myself to figure out how to change these thoughts, because they get in neural pathway grooves and you can't just change them. You have to, you have to choose to change them. You have to even hear what's being said. When I was performing that night in Brooklyn, I didn't even know these were going on, but they were unconscious until that night. So the first step is even becoming aware of what we're saying in our heads, and then we can start working with that. But so I developed something called the de-looping method, because I called these mind loops, because they loop and loop and loop in there. And there are negative thoughts that can come in and they stay briefly and they go away. But the people like me or I guess a lot of us, if so many percentage of our people have repetitive negative thoughts, they repeat. And we know it's like that hamster on a wheel. So my life, Peggy, changed dramatically as I started changing these thoughts. I mean, dramatically. Within a year, I was off antidepressants and I had been on them for years. And without any dips, because my emotional state would be neutral, fine. And then I'd have these intense dark dips. And it would take so much effort to pull myself out of the depression, go along, and then another dip. I haven't gotten a dip since then. Doesn't matter if hardcore things have happened in my life, like people dying, that has happened since then. I feel grief, but I don't dip. So, I mean, that is dramatic. My energy is higher. I look so different. Sometime I should get some photos of before and after, because it's just such a, you can see the difference in my inner difference on my outer
I
body.
tried antidepressants like 10 years ago, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and for maybe a year, and then I went off because I realized my kids would all be laughing, and I'd say, "What are you laughing at?" I wasn't
Oh,
laughing with my kids anymore.
yeah, it can dampen some things for some people.
Yeah.
For me, they were a blessing at the time when I needed them, and I don't have anything against them for short-term
Right.
extreme points. But after that, there are so many other methods. They're harder. They take more effort than taking a pill. So the person has to be willing and committed to doing different things, whether that's meditation or exercise or de-looping or tapping, whatever it is. But they are the ones that last. They're the ones that actually change us. But anyway, I'm fine with antidepressants for people that need them at the time they need them,
Right.
personally. Anyway, let's see. So yeah, my life dramatically changed. Money changed, relationships changed, everything changed. And that's when I wrote my book. and it's called How to Stop Negative Thoughts. It's read all over the country, or all over the world. I get these notifications when people get the workbook that comes with it, and they're from sometimes places I have to look it up on the map. Where is this cool place? So that is so rewarding to me that it's getting out there.
I like those books that come with a workbook. I had
Yeah,
one years ago on PTSD, and it come with a workbook, and I found that
yeah,
really helpful.
yeah, I do too. I do too. So that all happened, and then the next phase of my near-death experience, it's had these different stages. The next stage was thinking, okay, the first stage is to turn off the faucet of negative thoughts. Just turn off that influx of negative thinking, and then start living with a new lens. It's kind of like driving in a car and looking through a windshield at forward, at the new things coming, instead of always looking in the rear view mirror and allowing my past and my story to direct my driving.
Mm-hmm.
So now I was driving forward. Then I thought, I am so curious about the creative power of thought, because the negative thoughts are extraordinarily creative. They're just creating things I don't want. I wonder what would happen if I started directing my thoughts towards the things I do want. And now that I've kind of turned off the faucet of the negative automatic thoughts. And that's when I reacquainted myself, because I had been involved in it earlier, years ago, in the conscious creating or manifesting, and started really working with the idea of manifesting things I wanted in my life. I ended up developing a course called Blueprint for Magic that combines the new place I was in with these thoughts and the near-death experience with some old practices that had come through me years earlier as a download one day that allowed me to get an office that I was desperate I needed to get the very next day. And 3 boyfriends I used it for, which was wonderful. It was extraordinarily powerful for me.
3 boyfriends you used it for.
Yeah. The
Are you talking about The Office or the magic?
What's that?
Are you talking about The Office or the magic?
No, the magic. Yeah.
Because I heard I got an office and the 3 boyfriends I used it for.
I love that. No, I never brought the boyfriends to the office. No. That was good. No, yeah, the magic brought all this stuff. So I developed this course, and it's such a beautiful course, Peggy, but I'm in such an unusual state right now that I don't choose to mark it. I don't want to mark it. If someone's interested in it, if there are 10 people interested in taking this beautiful manifesting course called Blueprint for Magic, I will open it. And so I'm just leaving that out there.
Now, the word magic is going to scare Christians, I think.
Oh, well, that's too bad.
You know what I mean? So maybe you could explain.
Yes, I will. If you pull,
because you're hearing manifest, and then you do magic, right? Oh, wait a minute, are we getting black magic now?
I see. What about white magic? I mean, you could look at Christ having walked on water or making wine out of water. That's magical. You could call it blueprint for miracles, if that's a more appropriate word for Christians.
I think that word is a trigger.
Okay, thank you for that. For me, magic is just magical.
Because there's so much new age stuff right now.
What's that?
There's so much new age stuff.
Yeah.
And Christians is like getting on this side, and the new age is getting over
Oh,
here. And it seems like there's this big, you stay away from me and I stay away from you. And so I
oh,
just wanted to clarify so people don't misunderstand
I
what you're
appreciate
saying.
that so much, Peggy, because to me, those are, language is very um, complicated and misleading. And language is completely connected with the thoughts in our heads, completely intertwined. In fact, self-consciousness of a human being developed at the time when language developed. And until that time, we perceived. Now we think in concepts. And so when we see a tree, we don't perceive the tree. We think, what a beautiful tree. And it takes away, it removes us from the experience of perception, and it creates judgment. That tree is ugly. That tree is beautiful. That person is ugly. That person is beautiful. That word is ugly. That word is beautiful. They're all concepts based on our thoughts in our head. But in but but we just try to express as well as we can what is happening in this 3D world of us using language. But unfortunately, it has all sorts of past things stuck to it. So
Yeah.
I will describe for sounds like for a Christian community, the word miracle is the same thing to me as the word magic.
Yeah.
It's they're both absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Like I can see,
And I
I could be
don't,
in the worst negative place, and I know, and my husband knows, get that Christian music channel on, the message, and
yes.
it's like magic.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So you understand where I think you understand where I'm coming
Yeah,
from.
I do. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure other people don't freak and have instant fear when they hear that word magic, especially when it comes right after the word manifest, because those are like
Got
trigger
it.
words for Christians that
Yes.
here we go, and then on my channel, I have everybody,
Yes.
atheists, ministers, and I don't tell anybody they can't come on. And,
Good.
but most places aren't that way. One side may not want anybody very Christian. And then the
Yes.
other side might not, you have to be not only Christian, you got to meet a Christian to meet our standards. And so,
See,
um,
and to me, this is so sad.
it
This
is.
is exactly this is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about mind loops. Because whatever side you're looking at, and same with politics, whatever side one is on, they are pushing against the other. And the fact is, we are all aspects of God. We are all, and this brings tears to my eyes because when I walk down the street now, it can be any type of person, and I take off the label of that is a certain type of person, or is that a certain, that's a beautiful person, that's a non-beautiful person, that's a kind person, that's a harsh person, whatever it is. I just see them as aspects of God. And when we take these mind loops out, we start actually seeing everyone underneath these persona suits we have on. And the persona suits might be a Christian persona suit, or this persona suit might be a New Age or manifester persona suit, or a Buddhist suit, or a Republican or Democrat suit. Whatever suit, underneath all of that is the being that is the beautiful spirit that came incarnating here. And when I had that altered state on stage while I was singing in Brooklyn, and there was that self behind me observing, that's the piece I'm talking about. That is the spirit that is all of us. And I truly believe we are all doing our best. We are trying our best. We are so filled with these negative thoughts and loops and judgments and stories and assumptions about each other and about the world that it's destroying connection. And so I'm thrilled you brought up this word magic, because it's opened up such a cool thread of conversation for us that, as you can tell, is just moving me. Because it makes me so sad that something like a word can cause fear in people or anger.
Yeah, and put a
or
wall
turn
right
off
up
the whole
and
thing.
say, she is that.
Yes,
Back.
exactly. When the
And you're
truth,
not that.
no,
It has nothing to do with you.
no,
People
I'm
create
hardly that.
monsters in their mind that has
Yeah,
nothing to do with the person they're talking about.
yeah. So anyway, I guess that's enough about all that. But so I started using thought for creative purposes, and it was beautiful. It's, you can, maybe a Christian community might say prayer is another version of it. And if someone is praying for something, or if you're talking to another group, if you're manifesting for something, either way, when people pray, sometimes they're praying with gratitude toward God. Sometimes they're praying for, please let me know God more. Sometimes they're praying for health for a friend who's ill. Sometimes they're praying, they might be praying for something. Please help me get through this difficult divorce, whatever it is. Whatever we're praying for, whatever we're trying to manifest, they're very, very similar. So I'll get both of your audiences in. The most important thing is for that person to be 100% sure they want that. Because whether you're manifesting or praying, that thing or sensation or quality or whatever it is you want absolutely can come to that person. But here is the really interesting thing that has been part of the illumination in the last few months. And that is, we think we want something, but if we really dive in deep, we often find out there's a reason we don't want it. And I'll give you a heavy duty example. There was a woman I read about who had very extensive cancer, like stage 3 or 4, like very far. And she was in bed, very sick. And every day, people who loved her would come and visit her. They'd pray for her. They brought her books. She read all the time. And she had someone come, a really good friend, and said, do you want your cancer to go away? And she's like, oh, of course I want are you crazy? Of course I'd do anything. I'm praying to have my cancer go away. And this friend, bold, courageous person this friend was, said, are you getting anything out of having cancer that is beneficial to you? And bless this woman, she actually thought about it instead of instantly shutting down her brain saying, absolutely not. And she thought, I was so lonely before I had cancer. No one came to visit me. I don't have a spouse. People come every day. They bring me flowers and gifts, and they spend time with me and talk to me. They bring me food. I'm so grateful for that. And she thought a little more and said, I don't have to go to that horrible job anymore. All I ever wanted to do was sit home and read and look at my stack of books. All day I get to read. And then she thought, there was another thing. Well, anyway, that's enough. You get the idea.
I get the idea.
There was parts of her that absolutely did not want to not have cancer. And there was this one moment where it's really, really, this is when the lesson came to me. I was somewhere in South America, and I was praying or manifesting. No, I was a prayer. And I was in this deep state of meditation and contemplation. And there was these mosquitoes. I was like, it's driving me crazy. And so I was, and in my prayer, I guess you could call it a prayer. It was a discussion with something, spirits. After the things that happen after near-death experiences, we start having connection. A guide, let's say a guide.
Okay, so it's not God to you, it's guide. I'm just curious, like who those voices were during your near-death experience that were talking to you, just what you make of it.
I don't know what.
Okay.
They're all manifestations of God to me. They are all manifestations of God. They're beautiful, beautiful spirits, let's just say. Angels, God, I don't know. I just call it guide. So this guide and I were discussing something. And I said, I really want those mosquitoes to go so I can really focus with you. And that's when it said, you can have, and anyone can have anything they want, but they have to be 100% sure. So are you 100% sure you do not want the mosquitoes? I said, yes. I said, just really think about it. And I was like, oh my goodness. Having the mosquitoes around me, I felt closer to nature. I had no idea. But if I said, go away, mosquitoes, that means I'm pushing a piece of God out. I'm pushing nature out. I'm saying they're bad. And they're just existing. And so I said, oh my goodness, let them stay. And it's fascinating, Peggy. So when we're talking about prayer or manifestation or miracles or magic, however we want to name this, the most important thing is to make sure there's no ulterior motives for keeping it. And that requires some deep contemplation.
Yeah. See, people ask me, because I was always so skinny my whole life and I've put on weight, and don't you want to lose the weight? No, because it protects me.
Yes,
nobody's going to kidnap a fat woman. Nobody's going to rape a fat woman. No men are going to come out of the woodwork trying to mess up my marriage with a fat woman. Yes. It's a protection.
Yes.
And it'd be nice if I could trust myself that I have the mental protection. I wouldn't need the fat, I'd be able to fight somebody off. I'd be able to, be aware of my surroundings. I would be, it's just, like you said, it's just one of those things that I don't think I'm ready to give it up.
That is
I like feeling
deeply insightful. I am so impressed. That is so rare for someone to look at that, especially if someone is bringing it up. It's kind of like,
it makes me feel safe.
I get that. I totally get that.
I don't like feeling smaller than men. Like I'm done with that. I don't like feeling smaller. I don't mind being bigger than all the men in the room. I feel very comfortable.
Yes. I can imagine it's very empowering.
It is.
Yeah. Congratulations.
And there's women my age, they're these skinny little sticks, like I used to be, but I never had to be. I never tried to lose weight or anything. I was just naturally skinny, right? And so, there's one day I was in the kitchen and this one lady walks by me and she starts to fall. She's like 100 pounds. And I just reach over and grab her with one hand with hardly any effort to keep her from falling on her butt. And I'm thinking, I feel strong. I feel capable. I just saved a woman, from breaking her neck.
I think that is absolutely beautiful. And it takes body acceptance way beyond body. It's like 10 steps further than body acceptance.
And I work with my husband on the pipeline, and I love to throw skids. They're these big timbers. Like I could throw skids all day. Like I love that feeling of strength. I love getting my work boots on and my hard hat and my men clothes, pulling my hair back and not feeling like a vulnerable female.
Yes. I totally hear you.
And not getting female wages, because I always worked in social work and counseling, and I could work a couple months and make what I would have made all year in social work. And it's just like I get to be a man almost. I don't act manly. Like some women work on them jobs and they have to be all awful,
Right,
And
right.
like I'm just still me, but I just like inside I like feeling strong. I'm still thinking about near death experiences all the time and all that, all my stuff.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
that's not feminine. That is what it is. Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. And I know what you mean. I love getting dirty. I mean, I'm all dressed up right now with my lipstick. But sister, you should see me when I'm like on my normal days, when I'm hiking and it's fun.
Yeah.
One thing that makes me sad is when I see it's usually little girls, sometimes little boys, and the parents say, "Don't get your hands dirty. Get out of that mud." I'm like, oh God, they are missing out. They're being taught that the earth, the beautiful Mother Earth, is dirty. It's not. It's beautiful. So
Yeah.
anyway, I have 2 cents on that.
Yeah.
So what now, my friend? Where do we go?
I'd had a question. Let's see. I asked you about the voice. Oh, the list of people you were supposed to contact or something
Yeah.
that happened. How'd that work out?
That was remarkable. Most of them were about expressing love, profound love towards them. And again, I tear up because this is the kind of love where the person already knows I love them. For instance, one was my mother. My mother and I are very close, and we say I love you to each other, but it was instructed me to go back and express profound love that one might feel, let's say, at the highest moments one feels the love towards that person, or if you imagine them gone, how much you would miss them. And I was told, find that version of your love for these people and figure out what specifically about them do you love and what has their presence in your life meant to you in your life. Like, what has my mom meant to me in this experience of life? And so it was funny. I called each of these people up. Two of them I had very good relationships with. The other two needed healing. And so the first two, I called them up and I said, "Will you meet me at this time? And I have something I want to tell you." Well, of course, it was literally the week I had gotten back from my near death experience. I was crying. I was like telling this crazy story of this near death experience. And they were both, no one could look at me during that week. I was so intense and so like just like exuding love through my eyes that it was too much. And so they were looking down and I was saying, "Mom, I love you because this, and you had gave this to me and these qualities, and you taught me these things, and without you and this and blah, blah, blah," and just crying. And she was so overwhelmed and hardly knew what to say. And then the second person really freaked out, and it was funny. It became really funny because people say, "Oh, hey, love ya, see ya, love ya," or "Love you, man," or whatever. I love you. It's like, but it's not like I love you deeply, deeply love you. It's like that feels different.
Yeah, that feeling you would have, like you said, if they passed, you're
Exactly.
able to do that while they're here.
Yes. And then the two that I had trouble with, one didn't live here, so I was instructed to call that person every week. Just check in. I don't say anything in particular. I don't talk about love. We just need to heal years of disconnection. And Peggy, you would not believe, in, I don't know, I would say over about a year's time of that, maybe 6 months, but a year. And now it's been many years. Insane love sprouted up. And it was just from calling, from like a 3 to 5 minute conversation every week, going, hey, how's it going? All right, see you later. And then meet next week again and again and again. And then reconnecting. Now it's like potent, intense, beautiful, deep, hour-long conversations. And then the last person who does live in Seattle with me, that one was intense because we had had a big fight a few months earlier. And first that had to be repaired. And then came the deep love from, it's so deeply in me. And again, that person was completely overwhelmed. I didn't know what on earth, how to respond, because this level of intensity of emotion is rare on the earthly plane. We are so afraid of our emotions, good or
Nice if
bad.
you had workbooks for that.
That's a really, really cool idea. That's a great idea. I will give one idea that just came through right now. It's not hugely original, but it's something that your audience can take away from this. And it is profound. If they do it, it is profound. And that is to get out their phone or their email or a pen and paper right now and think of one person they need to either say, I love you to, or I am sorry to. And write them right now a text or email or letter or the phone.
I did that with my sister about a year ago. And after talking for a while, she confessed to me something I had always thought for 60 years at that time. She says, I've always hated you.
Wow. Wow. And how did
So,
that go from there?
acceptance. I mean, I'd always known it, but kept out hope that I was wrong, that deep down she
Yeah.
did have. I've always hated you.
Wow, that's a tough one. That's a tough
Yeah.
bitter pill.
Yeah, because this is the one I had unconditional love for. I mean, the things she had done to me, I could write a whole list, And I
Yeah.
said, what did I ever do to you? And she said, I've just always hated you.
No, no
No,
reason.
no.
There might be some reason she's either not wanting to tell you, or she's not even in touch with, or who knows what your
In
contract was
in
before
the
you came.
past, she's told me that it was because I was pretty and nobody ever called her pretty.
Yeah,
She was a chubby tomboy and I was a skinny little dainty thing.
with your
And
gorgeous hair.
we were both like plain kids growing up. When I got about 14, I started getting, that age you turn to the swan, and I guess she didn't.
Yeah,
And so she never liked me and, was a bully. But then when that happened, she went nowhere near me. And
yeah,
then later in life, when we, got married, we'd have our children and things. I thought finally she was the sister I always wanted, but then I would find out her underlying manipulation, how she was really undermining me. And so it's just never going to happen for me with her.
yeah,
But so, yeah, I just, I've always told her how much I love her. And I've always been the little tag along sister trying to get, the older sister's attention. And she just finally said, I've always hated you.
yeah.
No, but
Well, I will. That's really sad. I'm sorry to hear that. It's interesting though. I have a couple of comments to say. One is, what was it? Oh, shoot. Hold on. Just went out my head. Well, I'll just say this one. Sometimes we want to love someone. It sounds like you do have unconditional love, but a lot of people might want love or from the other person by expressing our love to them. And so with the hope that they will love us back. Oh, I know what it was. The beautiful part about your story is that you cleaned up your side of the street. And all we have is our own integrity. And we can't obviously control, anyone else can't control your sister, whether she loves you or not. But you have the choice to love her without condition, without her loving you back, which is hard. And if a person can get to that place of not needing their love, but they actually know that the behaviors of that person are problematic, sometimes downright evil, and I'm not saying about her, but a person.
Yeah.
Underneath that, the way they popped out of the womb was not that way. Their spirit is not that person. And so if we can love the spirit underneath that rotten behavior or unkind behavior, unloving behavior, we have grown tremendously spiritually. And that takes extraordinary energy of love. Because if there's a whole list of things a person's done to us, like you described, forgiveness is really, really difficult.
Well, I blame my mother because she's a type person, I was the youngest of 5. And so I'm her baby. So she made all the other kids jealous of me and hate me. And then when I was 14, she had my baby brother. And to this day, she still tries to do that with him. Oh, I worry about him. I think about him. He's just, and I'm like, you're not making me hate my brother.
No.
Because you always dote on him. That doesn't make me hate him in the least. That just shows me more about you, that you're never going to change. And you did this when I was little and turned my siblings away. So, I understand why, but they don't, and that's fine. But yeah, I wished her happy birthday. No response on Facebook, but that's okay. And like my mother, I say, she's a bad mother, but that doesn't give me a right to be a bad daughter. I still like feeling like a good daughter. I'll still go see her in the nursing home, and the people in the nursing home said, she tells everybody she don't like you. I was like, I know, but I'm still coming because I'm not a type person that
very triggering.
What's that?
I said, families can be very triggering. They are big lessons there, aren't they?
Yeah.
Big lessons.
I wanted to ask you. Oh, go ahead.
I like to think about with our families or our spouses or our children, the people closest to us. I love thinking, just contemplating. I wonder what happened before we were incarnated, and what kind of sacred contracts these people and I might have made. And that if they are my teachers, I wonder what these people are teaching me.
Well, I was told mine in my 5-year-old NDE that night after my drowning. I was shown that I was to love unloved children like me. And so I ended up having 60 foster kids and, adopted 10. And I didn't put all that together. I wasn't like at 5 years old, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It was just like, as you get older, you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together and start to see your purpose, how everything was lined up. And, we think people, well, they closed that door on me and this door closed on me. But guess what? It made this little ditch go off to where you were supposed to go, away from the river. You weren't supposed to go that way. This special route was for you. And so it's just as you get older, it's like these aha moments and this clarity.
Thank goodness for getting older.
Yeah. Yeah. And these young women, I was like, honey, you got nothing on me. I was like, you have no idea how great this is. And I'm so glad that I was never a drug abuser, an alcoholic, that I would have all that baggage and stuff, that I can be free, mind clear, and have all my memories. I don't have, any trouble with the law or, health problems because of any of those things. I quit smoking at 18 when I got pregnant. I've lived a very clean life. In fact, my doctor said to me, "You thought I had a heart attack when working the pipeline." They took me to the hospital. Something showed up on a stress test. And so they took me in and was getting ready. They said, "Was kick you in, what if we're going to do heart surgery, or, what we're going to do, sign these papers." And so what's that test, Jim, they did? Was a heart catheterization. They pulled me out in 5 minutes and they said, "You have the heart of a 19-year-old. They said, "You must have lived a clean life."
Nice.
I was like, I did.
That's gorgeous. And that's something to be proud of, for sure. I mean, life is full of challenges. Life is a big, crazy challenge maker, and it's how we respond to all these issues and problems and challenges that come up. And I love that. I love that you're strong. You found other ways to handle the intensities coming at you rather than alcohol or drugs. And I've had my share of alcohol and drugs. I'm not clean in that way. I was never addicted, thank God. But in the music world, in the art world, there's a lot of that going on,
And I'm sure I would have too, in your lifestyle.
Yeah. It's natural, it's like, oh, there's a drug. You just do a drug when you're in the music world. I don't know if it's still that way, but when I was more involved, it was. So, but I think a lot of people use these things or shopping or gambling or, TV, anything, eating and drinking, anything, to overworking in order to handle the intensities of life. And some of them cause more after effects than others, I mean, overworking causes tremendous stress on the body and mind and spirit. So, we choose which things we're going to use to get us through.
Yeah, we had some close calls on the pipeline and we stood back like we could have been gone just like that. I mean, this happened right in front of us, and like, what, then it's one day, and it's off topic, but the day before we run out of these plastic, we call them cones. They stick this big, long, heavy pipe on. We was welding, working on, and we ran out on the last, Jim, like 20 feet. And so they put skids, which is the big, heavy railroad ties, use those instead, which they should have used all along. But this is what this company was using, was these plastic things. So they ran out of the plastic things. So they use these skids on the last 20 feet. The next day, towards the end of the day, we were working on that last 20 feet on this side of the skids. The other was all cones. And one of the bosses, Kurt, the other end of this long, I don't know how long, like several blocks long, 700 feet of this big round, 12-inch pipe.
Whoa. Yeah.
Decided, they thought we were done welding and they went to move the pipe. And so we looked, we felt my husband was just under there welding underneath that pipe. And I was there, and then he got up and I got under and I was doing my work on it. And all of a sudden it started moving.
No way.
All of it was on the ground except for that last 200 feet where those skids was down where we were. If we hadn't run out of those plastic things, both of us or one of us would have been cut in half under that pipe.
That is terrifying.
Yes.
That is some dangerous work you two are doing.
Yeah. I mean, but there's all kinds of things like that could have, like that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, life is just a lot of different surprises for us, doesn't it?
But I said, but I could have got killed as a caseworker too. I had people on top of my cars. I'm pulling away, I had a hatchet in my head. So
wow.
If you're going to almost get killed, I'd rather do it for 4 times the money.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
But I wanted to ask you, and I'm not trying to put any labels or words on what, God, the voice, guide, whatever. Mm-hmm. Just the thought of, because I know what you mean when you say all that. Mm-hmm. The thought that exists is mind blowing. And I don't think people talk about that enough.
Yeah.
as far as near-death experiencers, because they all want to come up with conclusions of it's this, and this. But the fact that that intelligence and that voice that knows exactly what memories to show you
Yes.
and how to use it, knowing what you'll need and what you'll do with it.
Yeah.
Because what you end up doing with that information and making your books and your talks, and it's like this intelligence, whatever name you give it, is just, I feel like isn't stressed enough or brought out to light enough, or, I guess maybe because there's so many labels for what that is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just mind blowing.
I love that you said that. I absolutely love that you said that. I like I told you, there was in the past few months, there has been much more illumination than I've had in a long time. And it's happening every single day. Something new, a deeper awareness of exactly that. And I feel myself tearing up again. This happens after near death. You're okay apparently, but after a near death experience, I'm so much more. I can't like disguise stuff as much, so it just comes up. But I sense what you're talking about. This profound, all-encompassing consciousness, or God, or source, or great spirit, whatever you want to call it. I feel that in the very air that I'm moving my hand through.
Yes.
I feel it in everything. I see it in everything. I wake
when
up.
We're not negative.
Huh?
When we're not negative.
Well, that's just the thing. I haven't been feeling.
Yeah,
like,
but see, I can't feel that when I'm negative.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. But that's what I'm saying. In the past couple months, something has shifted. And I'll tell you the things that cued it on for me. It's almost like a light went on. And I am not, something will happen. I'll get a tailgater, or, you know, I mean, that's a little thing, but, or I'm on stupid, voicemail hell with, the cable company, or, someone will say something that could trigger me. And whenever, what started all this were a couple things. One was I had a failure in my business. And for about 2 hours, I was so mad and I was so upset. And then I said, I'm surrendering to this moment, because I keep telling myself things are happening for me, not to me. Things are happening for me, not to me. And that failed because that was a good thing. Fail. I love saying fail. It's like one of my favorite words now. It's like I put it in quotes, because a failure is only a redirect. It's a place to learn, and it's a redirect. And so I redirected into this state of incredible surrender. Now, when we're feeling good all the time, we don't get these moments of where we stop for a second and contemplate the spaciousness of spirit around us. We're just doing our thing. So if we're feeling good, we're connecting with people, we're doing this, we're in doing. And when something quote unquote bad happens, or a failure quote unquote happens, it causes a person to stop for a second, to pray, for instance, to contemplate, to go deeper into oneself, to go deeper into spirit, and start thinking, what was that about? Am I on the right track in my life? What am I doing where I'm not surrendering to what is? What am I trying to control? What am I choosing is good or bad? Making judgments, or good or bad. Preferences, I've discovered, are even judgments. preferences. I don't like that music. I think that's dumb song. That is a judgment. It's not just a preference. And I started noticing all these little, like a way deeper level of quote unquote negative thoughts as gifts. And so now when I'm triggered, or I could be triggered by a tailgater, for instance, if I'm not in the fast lane going slow, if I'm in a middle lane or whatever, and they're still tailgating me, I I smile. I don't know why. Peggy, there's this sense of surrender, like they're tailgating me. They can go around me. I'm going the pace I'm going to go. Bless them. They're freaked out. Hurry. I'm not. I'm in a space of presence. I'm enjoying my day. And these things start, I feel like a duck. I don't know how long this is going to last, but it's been going on for 2 months. And every day as I surrender to every moment, everything that comes up, not trying to make things happen my way, just going with the flow, life is shifting dramatically. So that's the first big shift I started making, a conscious choice to surrender at every moment. And the second big choice I made, I'm not Catholic, and my friend who called me about this is not Catholic, but she called, or she texted me and said, hey, Lent started today. So that was a little over 40 days ago, right? And so I said, Lent. I know the basic idea of Lent, but I don't know the background of Lent and why is it 40 days? And I know you give up something, but why? So I looked it up. I'm like, oh, so Christ was in the desert for 40 days and gave up food and fasted and had all these amazing illuminations, obviously. And I thought, I'm going to give up something for Lent. No, it was not sugar. No, it was not TV. No, it was not things like people give up. It was complaining.
Mm.
For 40 days, I did not allow myself to complain. For sure, not through my mouth, but as much as I could, even not in my head. And as it began, the first week it began, I thought, I don't even know exactly, I'd have a thought, is that a complaint? Or is that an observation? Or is that a preference? Is that discerning? Like I had to even complain is again, a conceptual word. What does it mean to complain? Can someone say that was something, you can't even say I didn't like?
It's like focusing on the negative, like you focused on that guy in the audience.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure all these fans were just loving you, but you focused on that one, and
Exactly.
it's like you were, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? It was like focusing on that.
Yeah. It's accepting life on life's terms. So it went hand in hand with no complaining, went hand in hand with surrender. And things are happening for me, not to me. And I took these concepts, these 3 concepts with me for my 40 days of Lent. I'll tell you, Peggy, it cleared out so many clogging thoughts. And I tell you, I've been de-looping my thoughts for years. I don't even think about it anymore. It's so automatic. I'm generally extraordinarily joyful and things are going fine. I handle things well. Things are not always fine, but I handle them well. I don't react so hardcorely. But this is a whole different level. This is when you're talking about the God or the guide or the whatever we want to call that source energy that's been rushing in because the thoughts aren't clogging up my brain. My brain is more open and free. I'm calmer. I'm not rushing. I'm not doing all the time. I spend a few minutes. I'll get up, I'll make a cup of coffee, and instead of just starting immediately writing in my journal, or for God help me looking on email or something like that, instead I take my coffee and I sit on my little coffee table and I look outside at the tree. And I just let my mind be quiet. and I sense the spirit around me, and the spirit enters more and more and more, and the dreams. I'm telling you, something magnificent happens with, for me anyway, this combination of surrendering to what is and not complaining. It cleans things out.
So I think that's why I like my Christian pop music, because I'm listening to those lyrics and not my own thoughts.
Yes.
You know, when I go in to do the dishes, like I feel like I have done dishes my whole life. I don't want to do them anymore. And so I turn on my Christian music, I'm listening to that. And I don't even know I'm doing dishes. And I get the whole kitchen clean, I wish, but you know, cleaning up. And I gotta have my music on. If we're working outside, we gotta have some music on. I gotta turn this off.
Helps. Yes, yes. Music is a serious godsend. Or can be, unless it's the music you just like, you know. But yeah, when we find things that
right, if I heard that loud screaming stuff, I would be
exactly.
Someone needs to die.
Yeah, it's whatever is touching our, you know, I always kind of think of music as a tuning fork. I play harp, or I especially in the past, I played harp for many years, and I have this beautiful concert harp. And to tune a harp is no easy thing to do, because there's a bazillion, I think there's 80 or something strings. So you're tuning for a long time. And to get the you only find one note, and then you have to tune off of all that one note. So you have this tuning fork, and you hit it on an object, and then you place the tuning fork on the running board of the harp, and it goes wee, and that's an A or a C, whatever your tuning fork is, and you tune it, try to match that. So then you tune the rest of the harp. So that's obviously the same with guitars and everything. But what I love is that whatever music we're listening to is like a tuning fork for what is inside of us. So someone might be tuned beautifully to heavy metal. Someone might be tuned to rap. Someone might be tuned to Christian music or to classical or jazz. And it goes, and it makes our insides light up. It gives us joy and energy, or whatever it is we're looking for. And I love that when we find that, because the whole body can come alive, and the thoughts, like you say, they can go out.
The first time I told my NDE at a group, I ever told it publicly, I was talking about being when I drowned at 5 and was hovering above the pond. And then I was talking about my when I was 25 and the ectopic pregnancy, and I was in heaven, and I was there, and I felt I was levitating while I'm talking, and I was hooked after that.
Wow.
On telling my NDE, because I felt that realm. And it stayed with me. It's like I always say, you know, we had to go to my granddaughter's birthday party after that. We had to go to Walmart and get her a bike first. And I'm like, my feet can't feel the floor. I'm still levitating. And it stayed that way for a few hours. I just couldn't come down. Yeah. And here's all these people at this party, and they're all talking, and I'm like, they can't see it, but I'm still up here. And it was such a strange feeling. And, you know, I was always a shy person, and I'm like, how am I going to get in front of people and talk? But I couldn't do it about anything other than this, because when it comes to this, and I just like let go, and something else takes over. Yeah. And it's like not me, like I'm out of the way. It isn't about what I look like or sound like or what people think at all. It's I'm there, and I'm just reporting what I'm seeing, and it's and you know, that's why I love doing these podcasts, because we could talk about these things. And so I'll be like levitating for a while after every one of them, because it's just like we're in there.
Yes, I love that. And I love that you have a way to connect so intensely with that energy and levitate from it. It's beautiful. And I agree, there's something quite miraculous about near-death experiences. Something very deep and unusual happens.
And I've noticed too, talking to guests, it confirm what I have been thinking about gratitude. It seems like when we get us in a state of just this gratitude, and it seems like it gets timeless, and people have had out of body experiences during this, either trauma or from gratitude. It seems like it opens up a doorway. Like you can either like be so depressed and sad, like, God, I need help, but you don't even know you're asking God for help sometimes. And something's happening and you're in that realm, or you can just be filled with this gratitude and then you're in that realm.
Yes.
And I just wish that, science would actually seriously study these things instead
They are.
of, still where we are today, and
Yeah.
and not try to have an agenda where you want them to go.
Yeah.
Like I can take a survey like I did the other day, and there's all these questions about oneness. And then at the end of it, it says, do you have any suggestions or something? Like, yeah, stop with all the pushing the oneness stuff because they're wanting a certain answer to justify their theory. And I've seen it before. And like my friend of mine, she was sent this kind of a survey thing, and they would use hers and these others if you experience this and this and this. Of course, if you're the type person, oh, I just want you talking about me in this conference, so I'm going to, answer them in the way you want. And I don't know. But yeah, I just wish universities had actual scientific, psychological, hospice, whatever, a mixture of these subjects to come to actual conclusions. Maybe compare with all the universities. Okay, what conclusions did you come to about these? And then go forward, because it's just too real not to be real.
Well, my response to that is, how on earth could they come up with actual conclusions about something that is so profoundly unknowable to the human brain?
Well, for example, when someone's had a near-death experience, it seems to me, just my limited experience talking to people, that if they've had a near-death experience, say like Eben and a lot of others has had like 3% chance of survival, 1%, and then if you do come back, you're going to be a vegetable, those kind of things.
Right.
Anita Morjani, there's so many times, if you've had an NDE, throw those odds off the table. Because if this person had an NDE, they're going to have a miracle healing. And I believe it has to do with being in the light. And I think that somehow that light goes into our cells and miracle heals us. I know my tubal is the biggest tubal pregnancy they ever saw. And they sent me upstairs to sign my organs away instead of sending me right down the hall in the basement where I was, where they do surgery, to have my surgery. And they called my whole family and said I wasn't going to make it.
Oh my!
Could have just run me into surgery. I mean, they don't know how I was alive. I had internal bleeding clear up here. It says filling your entire cavity. But I had my NDE the night before, 1986, before anybody ever heard of NDE. And I couldn't tell my doctor, of course, because I don't want them put me in psych ward. But the thing is because of the NDE, I told my doctor I'm not going home, because I knew if I went home, I would die, and I don't want my sons to see my dead body. And so I thought, I'm going to die right here in the hospital. He can't tell what's wrong, but I knew something was wrong, so I just died. And so I'm not going to go home, I'll die here. But then all night long, I kept sitting up with this pain and the vomiting and stuff. And I would come back, and I didn't have another NDE, but each time I knew I had just died again. And I'd say, God, I know you can't keep doing this. I told God something he can't do. Now I think back, you can't keep bringing me back, but please keep me alive till morning. Maybe my doctor will come in early and check on me and do another ultrasound and find what's wrong. Because he told me, Peggy, why do you keep saying it's a tubal pregnancy? It's not a tubal pregnancy. And so my doctor did come early in the morning, and he did send me to ultrasound. So, so when I was on Dr. Oz in 2019, he told me, every time you passed out, you died. And I
Mm,
thought, always thought that. He confirmed it.
mm.
I couldn't say that I did because I didn't have any more near-death experiences. I just knew, like, God, you can't keep bringing back. And so I just wish that they could study these more, because I think it should be on a question when they come in and triage. Have
Oh,
you had any mystical, out of body, religious, any strange experiences? Because a lot of people won't say, I was
yeah,
just in heaven in the squad on the way up here.
yeah,
And this would give them a clue. Hey, this person, trauma bed 1, they're near death here.
yeah.
That would clue them in, because there may not, like my internal bleeding, there might not be sign. You look fine. We
Right.
don't see anything. Bye bye. And a lot of near death experiencers I've interviewed were sent home.
Yeah. Oh,
And then they
interesting.
come back. One girl, she come back 4 times. And then the 4th time, the doctor's like, oh my gosh, this woman had been bleeding out, but they hadn't seen it. When she got there,
Yeah.
she wasn't. But then, like I would start out to say, was the ones that they'd say, some were even actually dead, and getting them ready for the morgue. One guy the other day, they're getting ready to cut him open to do
Oh,
his
gosh.
autopsy.
Yeah.
And Ian McCormick, where they had the tag on his toe, he's getting ready to go to the morgue, and he woke up. And it seems like that when we've had an NDE, take all those odds of they're not going to make it, stick them in this room, don't do nothing with them. Because if they've had an NDE, science should say, if they studied enough to prove it, that this person may survive and beat all those odds. And I don't know if you're a natural redhead, but
Close enough.
okay, my mother-in-law, before she passed, she was a nurse, and she told me, she wasn't really like religious, spiritual or anything, but she said as a nurse, they knew if someone had red hair, they were more likely to have those types of experiences.
Oh, how strange.
And I got thinking, well, the Mayan people, that's mostly negative blood, and they don't know where the negative blood comes from. A lot of them are the red hair. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but I just have a lot of questions.
Yeah. Don't we all?
I drive my husband crazy.
I think it's good to have a curious mind. It's nice. Yeah.
So,
Well, I like where you're going with that. I feel like it's easy for me to, I don't watch the news in the past few months. That's another thing I've done. I'll read headlines. I know what's going on. I stay informed,
me too.
but I do not watch the news because that is someone else's mind virus that
Mhm.
they're putting into my head. No matter which station you're watching, they're virusing.
Right.
That's my personal opinion. So I make up my own mind. But if one does watch the news, or even after reading all my headlines, the world can look like a complete and utter disaster and scary as hell and just full of the most rotten possible people. And it looks like consciousness is going down the tube and we're doomed and everyone's just going to hate each other and kill each other. And that's that. It kind of feels like that. But when I started really thinking about it, sure, all that is going on. But there are things that are never in the news and never on the headlines on Apple all the time. Like this podcast, like all the near death experiences that are being told, like all the women that are finally getting in places of power, like all the the children that were molested by priests, that's come out into the open, by so many things that were hidden or pushed down are coming out into the light of day. And you talked about light as a healing factor. Unfortunately, it has to come into the light. And I think we're in a state right now where it's the light has been turned on in the room and the shadows are being revealed. The shadows are having to go away by the light shown on them. And we're seeing the most horrific stuff. When I have done classes in my de-looping method, the first week, I have everyone start tuning in to their thoughts, start writing down, putting little notations next to ones that they hear repeated. Oh, I said that second time, now I'll do it. Oh, I heard that again. That same thought, I wrote it down. Sometimes I'll have like 10, 15 marks next to one thought. And this goes on for the whole week. And I'll inevitably get one or two people emailing me during the week saying, what have you done to me? I've never had so many negative thoughts in all my life. What, is there something in your program? I'm like, that is what's going on all the time. But the light of consciousness was not yet on the process of unconscious thinking. And I feel like when we talk about the science that you're dismayed by, yes, it's not just science. There's a whole bunch of things that are dismaying going on.
Mhm.
And yet, years ago, not that long ago, people couldn't even talk about near-death experiences.
Yeah.
Or like you said, go to the quote unquote loony bin.
Mhm.
Now there's millions of us and a bazillion NDE, like IONS chapters all around the world speaking about this. Now that is progress. And so I always say, if we're moving in the right direction, as we're shining the light on the darkness, it's going to be okay. It's just so easy for me and everybody, I think, as a human being, to get stuck in looking what's still dark. And because people are more intrigued by that. There's more to talk about dark stuff than there is about light stuff. It's just funny. If you see a sunset, like, how much can you talk about the sunset? You can perceive it, but there's not a lot to talk about. But when we talk about politics or something like that, you could go on for days or months about things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we can be aware of what's going on and try to help problems where we see problems,
Yes.
but not stay in those problems and hate
Exactly.
build and build and grow
Yes.
around those. Because I've run into some
part of the
people.
problem.
Yeah, I've run into some people who got so worked up, they were ready to join some kind of group and go do things.
Yeah.
And I started making phone calls, to try to
Good.
prevent those things from happening. And I let them know that's not the answer.
Yeah.
That's just, you can't hurt people in the name of whatever cause you have. That's never
Yeah.
going to be an answer. So it's a fine line, like you say, you were trying not to focus on the negativity. We're trying to find our happy place. We're trying to stay, in the light, but then all this stuff's going on, and it's a balancing act of how much you are involved.
Absolutely, it is, without putting the head in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Doing what is in our power, without harming anybody. That's key. Thank you for making those phone calls. Harming people is not helping. And even getting super angry, like if you have any friends that believe differently than you, not you necessarily, but you, whoever's listening to this conversation. It's very, very easy to become part of the problem. And instead of, again, seeing their behavior as behavior of someone who is so identified with their thoughts that they have forgotten who they deeply are. And there is a person underneath that behavior that is spirit, that's every bit as full of the love spirit of God as another person is, as you are. And it's not easy to pull the judgment out. Boy, it's not easy in this state of black and white. Everything's just this or that,
Yeah, I see a lot lately on social media of people saying, I hate religion. Like I'll see it several times a day on my Facebook. Mm-hmm. I hate religion. I hate religion. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, I had a bad experience. So you hate all people that attend service?
Yeah.
have a religion because you had a bad experience. And
Yeah.
then those people in those churches are thinking those people over there are the devil. And
Right.
a friend of mine stopped
Extreme.
at a yard sale at a church a couple years ago. And while she's looking at stuff, I asked the ladies, I said, is the pastor here? And she's, yeah, he's in his office. I said, can I talk to him? So they took me back. And I said, I had an Irons group at the time. I had just started one in this area because this is a very, I guess you say what, church belt or something.
Mhm.
And so there's no other NDEers I know of but me down here. And I started this group. And so I asked if I could come maybe after his church service, naive me, after the church service and offer this to people if anybody's had a near-death experience, spiritual experience. Because in my mind,
idea.
this is all about God and Jesus and heaven and angels, not realizing, no, it's not for a lot of people in the NDE community. I didn't know, I was naive. And so he said, no, I have to protect my flock. I said, from me? And I now know what he meant because I didn't know about the side of near-death experiencers that are non-Christian or against Christians, against church, and against, I was unaware. I'm aware now, but I won't go into that any further. But so that's why I say I will not turn anybody away from my podcast, because my Christian friends have got mad at me and stopped speaking to me because I had somebody on here, they say they're new age, they're not Christian. Peggy, you should only have Christians. And my response is like, oh, Christian like so-and-so that just did this and this and this to me and is putting bad name out saying that don't be on my, he caused a lot of people not to cancel being on as a guest on my show because he told them I make Christians look bad. And so that Christian, do you mean Christian like that?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to judge them. My door's going to be open both ends.
That. Yes. And I'm grateful to you for that. Walking that line between these labels, this whole world full of labels is not an easy thing to do in ourselves. And then with people that we like, or sometimes even love, it's very hard. And yet, is the person, the quote unquote new ager, not someone of God? Of course there's someone from God. Where else did they come from? Is the Christian not someone that is also from the Great Spirit? Of course that person's from the Great Spirit. We might be doing unkind things to each other, but we all are part of the realm of the grand consciousness or of God or whatever you want to call it. We just have weird names for it. We just keep changing the darn name.
I kind of look at it as like Black people being at Southeast Ohio. A lot of people have never seen a Black person years ago before. And so there's very prejudice. And I got beat up for a lot because I had Black friends. They said, if you are friends with them, you are one, and this is how we treat them. And I thought, well, you're making me like them even more, because if that's how you treat them, I'm going over here on this side because you people are wrong. Anyway, but so I'm kind of looking at it as black and white. Like they assume all these things, say New Ages is Black and the Christians are white. And they say, oh, they're so bad, don't associate with them. And then the Black are saying, oh, the white, don't trust them, they're bad. But if you get to meet one, a Black, or if a Black meets a white and they're in the same situation, like I have in my podcast, where they can look at them for an hour and hear their story, see that they're a kind person, see that they're not out here trying to hurt anybody, they're trying to make the world better, then you're going to see that might be as close as Christian as you're going to get without being a Christian, as far as what your image, because I believe a Christian image should be someone that is kind and trying to do kind and not trying to harm. And none of us are perfect. Like I say, we all have our negative times, but we can always try to do better.
Yes. Well, I always take it back to Christ himself. Like, would Christ be mean to a Black person? Would Christ be mean to a New Ager?
And my understanding, his skin was darker than, that most people would call Black, because where I live, anybody of a darker shade than white is Black. It doesn't matter what they are.
Yeah.
because they haven't seen that many. So they don't
Exactly.
understand, well, this is this and this is that,
I mean, that's again where these mind loops come up. Mind loops can be in the form of belief systems that are handed down from our parents, who are handed down from their parents, or blah 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 blah. Generations of people who don't know any African Americans, don't trust them, and vice versa. And yet, what what bizarre labeling is this when who knows why we came with different skin color. It really is. It's super weird when one starts actually thinking about a skin color having suddenly this huge, it's a concept that someone has in their mind. Someone with a certain skin color, like what if it was a green jacket? Anyone that wears a green jacket suddenly is a certain kind of person. It's just weird. It's
yeah.
really odd when you think about it.
Yeah, and they showed how easy it is to make people prejudice in the little scenarios they had with the kids at schools. And they would say, okay, we're going to play this game. And they say people with, say, blue eyes are all bad and they're not smart and they're this. And then, and how they start treating people differently and then realize it's a stereo or however they do it. And it's no different than what's going on now with all these adults in the world that are jumping on and I see it all day. Republicans are da 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 da. And I admit I'm guilty of, well, you Democrats, you liberals, you're this and this and this, and I'm just as guilty. But
Yeah.
we all think we're right.
Isn't that the truth? That's another mind loop.
Yeah.
It's actually really funny when one starts kind of popping out of the opposites. It's almost funny. It's a funny thing that starts happening, that there's an acceptance of what is, and not I don't know, I don't even, it's so bizarre, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's all this anger about someone not believing the way we believe. I'll tell you that one of the pieces of information, whatever gave me, you can call it God, guide, spirit, angel, I don't know, but it was that it said there are lies on both sides. There are lies on both sides. So anyone that buys into either side is being fed lies. And I really, really believe it's so easy to fall into the stream of a group consciousness that's believing this one thing, whether it's Democrat or Republican or New Age or Christian or Black or white, whatever. And we flow in with this group consciousness, and we're fed that group consciousness from the shows we watch, the social media, the people we hang out with. And then pretty soon, that's the only true reality. There is so much else going on. And I don't want to be fed lies about either side of any argument. I want to be able to let go of all that, know that there's a hell of a lot, excuse my language, but there's a lot of noise going on both sides, and bickering and disjointedness and unkindness. And I don't want any part of that. I want to see how much I can stay in the center of my own being, in the center of spirit, make up my own mind. And it's not even about my mind, it's about my heart. Go out of this crazy place where all this judgment and hatred and disjointedness is, and go straight into the heart and realize there's something okay going on. And I don't want to be involved in either side with all those lies. I want to get back into my own center. that's where I've been in lately, because this
I
is
keep,
just way too much.
when we talk about things like this, I always start hearing that song. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with you.
That's right. That's
So
right.
I don't want to keep you all day. I appreciate your time. It's been really
Oh,
awesome.
it's been a really, really deep and interesting conversation, Peggy. I'm grateful for you for inviting me, for reaching out to me, and for having your channel for all these people to contemplate things, to really go in and think about what's going on, and your beautiful spirit. I really, really have enjoyed meeting you, and I'm so grateful for everything you're doing.
I've enjoyed meeting you too. What a life you have lived.
And likewise.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'll see you again someday.
Okay, bye.